All right, everyone. I'm excited because we are here yet again. And by here, I mean virtually. And that's quite all right for now. All right. Because we're trying to keep everybody safe. Just want to say welcome, welcome, welcome to another African American Women in Cinema educational series, where it is presented every last Friday of each month. And this series features established professionals in the entertainment industry discussing various career insights. And, these speakers provide our audience with the opportunity to learn from their experiences. And through question and answer and just pure fun, the series is, of course, free and open to the public. And, first come, first serve. As long as you have a computer and you can type, you can be here. So thank you for everybody for joining us. And I'm so glad today to welcome our special guest speaker, Arlene A. McGruder. Let's give a high five, spirit fingers up for Arlene A. McGruder. And of course, I have to appropriately welcome her into this series tonight. So are y'all ready? I'm just going to pretend that I hear yes. Okay, very loud. Before I go into her introduction, please, just some housekeeping rules for tonight's educational series. If we can keep all of our mics muted, and for question and answer portion, we will let you know when that is, and you can simply go into the chat. And the question and answer portion will be facilitated between myself and our CEO of our African American Women in Cinema, Terry Renee. So when that portion comes, just send those questions over and I will make sure that our guest speaker gets your questions answered. Also, if you do have to be unmuted, make sure your cell phones are on vibrate or off so that we do not throw off any synergy of the conversation. We just want everything to be light and non-disruptive, and we want to be real respectful to our guest speaker. All right. So without further ado, I am Roxy Digital. I am from the syndicated networks, Sound Chat Radio Networks, and with FUBU Radio. I am glad once again to be joining you on another Friday for the educational series. I love doing this, and a very special thanks to Tara Renee for giving me the opportunity to be a part of this each time, or whenever she needs me. She knows I'm there. So welcome everyone to the series. It is presented by Front Media, which is the company of Roger. We've got to give it up for Roger. Yes, yes. And of course, we thank you for joining us today because you could be anywhere else. So make sure to check out as well www.aawic.org if you would like to check out any further educational series. As again, I want to remind everybody who is just joining us, this series takes place the last Friday of each month. All right, so today, it is with great pleasure I introduce you to Arlene A. McGruder. She is a Chicago-born and bred, New York-raised actress, writer, comic, and producer. She's been nominated for Best Supporting Actress for the film Killing Joanne in the Los Angeles International Indie Short Film Festival 2020, which can now be viewed on Tubi TV. She can presently be seen in the miniseries Sauce on a Space for Creators YouTube channel and Netflix's Jessica Jones. Web series credits involve Revolve, a Mismanaged, shout out to my therapist, Effed Up and Fabulous. Film credits include Serial Killer in Harlem in post-production, Manhattan Night, An Englishman in New York, The Other Brother. Theater credits include Elizabeth's Precious Kitty, Faith Under Fire, The Werewolf of Washington Heights, All American Girls, Kingfish, Amos and Andy. She's the founding member of the Black Her, The Pen, a multidisciplinary writers collective for women of color. Her producer credits include Carney Cuts Film Fest 2020, a 60-second online film festival celebrating Black, Indigenous, and women of color, BIWOC. So much to attribute to. She's also a stand-up comedian and was acknowledged for basically what you are going to see and hear tonight, with her NYC Black Comedy Award as a nominee for Best New York Female Comedian. Proud member of SAG-AFTRA, shout out to that, Rock the Bell Sketch Troupe, to Karen with Love Sketch Troupe and Carnival Girls Productions. Ladies and gentlemen, please, huge round of applause virtually to Arlene McGruder.
Ooh, I sound like I'm an important girl.
That's because you are, Arlene. Stop it. I know I was like, wait a minute, I have to keep going. I have to keep going. And with each bullet point, we're going to delve deep into how you got into it and why you're doing it. Because I think the most thing that we need right about now, from probably the start of 2020 and way beyond now, is laughter. So I can appreciate you bringing that side of yourself tonight and describing a little bit of, I'm going to mix up the conversation a little bit and approach the topic of mental health with you. But before we get into that, and you being a fabulous comedian and accomplished actress, please just tell us, besides what I read, who Arlene McGruder is.
Girl, after all that, I don't know if I am anybody else. No. Besides being that wonderful person that you just described, I am all of that. But I am that little girl who grew up on the west side of Chicago, who did nothing but dream about being on stage and being in film. I come from this humongous, big old Black ghetto family from the west side of Chicago. Shout out to the west side of Chicago, who have nothing but loved and supported me along this journey. Besides all those things, I am a sister, I am a great friend, and I am a survivor of life. Let me put that out there, of life.
So let's get into you being a survivor. All right. So you say West Side Chicago, which, you know, most of the time we hear about comics or, you know, people in the creative world coming from small, you know, places like somewhere in the Midwest or some town all the way down south, a small little town. You're coming from a big city to another major city. So how did you make your way from south side of Chicago to New York?
Okay, and that is the west side, honey, because you know we be fighting up in there, the west side, south side. No, but
oh, wait, you the west side?
I'm west side, girl, west side.
So you have to describe to me the difference between that as well, because I know that there is a certain reputation for a certain part of Chicago, but we'll get into that once you get into how you made your journey from there.
West side is the best side, so we'll leave it at that. But after I graduated high school, I went to Whitney Young High School, which is amazing within itself. We will fight about this, me and the class of 1978, because we were the first full four-year graduating class from Whitney M. Young High School. And we have some pretty good folks who went there. I ain't gonna do no name dropping Michelle Obama. But yes. So after that, I graduated. I went to Eastern Illinois University. And when I graduated from Eastern, and hey, shout out, go Big Blue, in '84, I was like, you know what? I mean, and I was on the 5-year program too. You know, I didn't do 4 years. I did 5 years, but I got out, got my degree. I walked that stage, made my mama proud. I decided that if I didn't find a job, I graduated in August. I said, if I don't find a job by November, I'm leaving. And that's what I did. I packed my bags up, and 1984, November, when I left Chicago, and I have not been back there since. I initially ended up in DC, Virginia area, which is a whole nother story. But when I left there, all I know is my boss was like, oh yeah, you going to New York, you'll fit in up there. I was like, I fit in right down here in DC. You guys just don't fit into me. But when I left there, I won a trip off a radio station in DC. And it was a trip to come to New York to see a play and stop in Atlantic City. And it was also the weekend that I was planning on taking the GMAT test to go to grad school, because I had figured in DC, college, a bachelor's degree was not going to get. It was almost like having a high school diploma living in DC. I was like, well, if I'm gonna be here, I'm gonna need to go get my master's. And it was the same weekend. The trip was the same weekend. And I had been studying, had paid for all of that. And I took the trip to New York. And I was like, yeah, this is where I need to be. And that was April of 1984. And after that, I packed up my bags, did the whole Beverly Hills thing, except for they went to the big house and I came to New York and became a struggling person, but I was here in New York.
You know, as a radio person, you winning a trip to New York makes, you know, kind of makes my day, and just is really humbling, because I know the feeling of when I give out or do contests and people win and they call in and they're so excited and they're so, you know, but like just the fact that that happens, those kinds of things happen in like movies or shows, or like when you're watching a sitcom, like, could this ever happen? So that's why I kind of wanted you to tell your story, because I want people to visualize how that feeling is to win something and get somewhere where you ultimately make your dreams come true. So well, a lot of creatives, and I always say creatives, but by that I mean actors and actresses and comedians and Broadway stars, they have to have the struggle before they get to where they get to, because that's how you appreciate your journey. So please let us know if you would like to share your struggle.
Oh, okay. Well, here is my struggle. When I arrived in some people may or may not know this, so here you go, Roxy. When I arrived into New York, I didn't know anyone. Well, initially, I was supposed to come to New York with a job from someone that I had met at a convention, and I had interviewed for the job and everything. But when it was time for me to come to New York, that job fell through. I had already I had already given up my other job in Virginia, had already given up my apartment. So I came on to New York. My old boss down in DC, I used to work for Kaiser Permanente. Shout out to Kaiser, even though y'all was telling me, go ahead to New York, get away from us. Because honey, I was nothing nice to those folks at Kaiser. But anyway, so one of my old bosses there rented me a car for me to drive to New York. My theater teacher from high school, shout out to LaJuan Mormon, Dr. LaJuan Mormon, who had told me that if you have an out-of-state driver's license or out-of-state driver, you can stay at a Y. I didn't have a place to live or anything. So I had my Virginia ID. And of course, I tried to stay at the most bougie Y there was, which was one that was by the United Nations over on 47th and First Avenue. Yes. So I pulled up there, stayed there for a minute. The rental car, I had no idea about the streets of New York, the parking. Came out the next morning, there's about the total of rental car I had. I'm like, no, I gotta turn it in. I lived in the Y.
You got to read those signs, those New York parking signs. They will have 700 words on one sign, ultimately meaning we will take your car for $385.
Right. Exactly. So I ended up a real struggler in New York. And that year I worked temp. I met a young lady in the Y who would give me food. She fed me. She allowed me to eat there. And so I worked temp down in Merrill Lynch. I'll never forget. And it was coming up to New Year's. And I was like trying to get everybody, come on, go down to New Year's with me. It was 1987. And everybody looked at me like I'm crazy. I'm like, this is my first time in New York. Child, I went down there and I was like all bushy-eyed and green tail head, my little head shot. I'm like, this how you do it? You just go down there. And I was just trying my hardest to get on TV to meet Dick Clark so I can get in my head shot. And the little PA, now that I know what it is, because the time when I got here, I had no idea, but it was the PA, and he was like, come on, sign me off. And if you all go back to 1988 to look at the Dick Clark show, I was on there. I got interviewed, and he asked me that year, what was my New Year's resolution? And it was so easy to make, because I said, I just want to make more money in 1988 than what I made in 87. And I was like, that wasn't going to be hard, because I had not made much when I arrived here. And so Merrill Lynch tried to offer me a job there. And I was like, oh, no. I know I get fired from here. I'm too colorful for this spot here. And that just was not my energy. So I ended up, my journey still continued. I've met some great people along the way. I've been homeless a couple of times. Met Kimberly, well, I've known Kimberly. I moved out of New York, came back, and was sleeping on a friend's floor. He out in LA. I'm thinking he had a condo in Jersey, and he was like, yeah, you can stay here. Little did I know, he out in LA, but he wasn't paying rent there. So, hey, I was there. I had keys. I stayed there until they actually finally threw him out. And then my good friend Kimberly was like, look, girl, come on, stay with me. After that, started working in the music industry. Worked in the music industry for a while. When I lost my job there, and it was because it was a turnover. When your boss leaves, the staff leaves. Lost my job there. Then I ended up like doing stand-up. One of the people there, I would say Glenise Coleman, Gene Riggins, was like, girl, you funny. You should just do stand-up. Stand-up was not something that like most comedians, they're aspiring. I want to do stand-up. It wasn't. It was like somebody said you should do stand-up. I ain't had no job. I wasn't doing nothing. So I did my first stand-up at New Music Seminar. And from there, I started doing stand-up. And then I was like, okay, you know what? Started back working in the music industry, started back working at Arista Records. And then after that, started working in the airline business, quit that, and was like, you know what? I want to do, this is what I want to do. I wanted to do theater and wanted to act. And ended up here now, retired from Delta Airlines, still trying to get that paycheck because now I can't be sleeping on nobody's couch. I'm too old to couch surf, so I still got to get that paycheck while I'm actually still pursuing this deal. So those are the little nuggets along my story, but those are the type of stories that I plan to tell based on my life there. And those were just little nuggets of it as I got along. But honey, it's a whole bunch of more stuff in between all of that. We ain't got enough time on this show for it.
Well, look, we're going to make time.
Okay.
I'm interested in the fact that you've had so many diverse experiences. And I love that you had, a stint in music and doing stand-up. And when you were doing stand-up, did you take any experiences from the struggle that you briefly shared with us onto the stage with you?
I absolutely did. When I did stand-up, I had no concept of what stand-up really was or anything like with timing. And I was just, somebody said, you funny, go tell some stories. And I've always found that the closest thing that I could talk about was me. That was the most truthful thing that I can tell was me and my story and stories of my family, because like I said, I come from a big old Black ghetto family in Chicago. Honey, them McGruders are nothing to be played with in Chicago. So yeah, I absolutely told my story on stage for sure. Absolutely.
Anything memorable that stands out to you from your experiences coming from, Chicago all the way to New York? Anything stands out that, might be inspiring to someone in this room tonight?
Well, I think the biggest thing for me was that when I left Chicago, I always thought that, oh, I'm only going to New York. That's just another big city. It's just Chicago. It's just, Chicago. When I came to New York, it's a whole nother beast than what Chicago is. And Chicago is still, even though it's a big city, compared to New York, Chicago is still a very Midwestern, still has a lot of Southernness, as you probably can tell from my voice here, but it still has a lot of that Southern vibe going on, and it's vibe to it. And it is still kind of conservative though, Chicago, as opposed to in the overall picture of being in New York or being in Chicago. Chicago still has a little bit of conservativeness and it's still very polarized. Oh, the one thing really stood out when I came to New York, I had no idea. In Chicago, you're not gonna have the Puerto Ricans or the Mexicans or any other thing in Blacks living in the same projects. And when I came to New York and saw that you have the Spanish people and Black people living in the same projects, girl, I was calling my friends like, girl, they got Puerto Ricans and Blacks living in the same projects. Something as simple as that was very different for me. But I found the most being that one, you think Chicago is a big city, New York is a whole nother beast. Chicago, yeah, it's a whole nother grind.
Yes, definitely some stories to tell in New York alone. And it doesn't even, you don't even have to be in every borough. You could tell stories from one borough alone. So speaking of stories, and since you've been telling us a couple of, brief ones, I want to get your take on storytelling for filmmakers. Like, how do you do it? Where do you start? And what's your process when you put on that thinking cap for film?
Well, the first thing is that storytelling is something that's been going on for years. And they're like, say, different, there are the different types of storytelling. You have the oral, which is, just stand and deliver, your written, which is coming from your novels, your newspapers, even your visuals, which started out as pictographs, which now end up being, your little pictures on the Egyptian walls. Those are ways of telling stories, which now it's grown into what we now call film and television. And film and TV use, I would talk about 6 cinematic things that TV and film use in order to convey that story. All stories films start with the screenwriter. A screenwriter entrusts the director to deliver their vision, their story. And that story, the director then gather his team together. But 6 things that a director will look for in their scenes: props. A prop tells a story. Sound tells a story. The music, when you see horror movies that sound whatever that is, girl, you know that something either spooky, scary is about to happen. Everything is a way of telling a story. Just to have someone walking, the way that person walks and how you film them, whether you're taking a long shot, tells a story as to where they're going, what they're doing, as opposed to that close-up where they're looking dead at you. Deliver, 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 deliver. Show your characters when you're doing that. In the film, director uses the camera to show different angles from a character's point of view. And that's through his lens. And then there's also the storytelling, which I do personally, is more written and oral. And because I do tell my stories from an autobiographical standpoint, mine is to stand and deliver. But both things that's in both of those, plays use playwrights to tell stories, film use screenwriters to be the storytellers. But the thing that's in both of those are writers. So every story starts with the writing. And with that being said, imagination. All you need is an imagination is the thing. You have to see it. And for me, you have to see it. Then also, you have to know your subject or the story. For me, it's easy for me to storytell because usually most of my stories are about me and mine. So it's just a matter of me. It's easy for me to talk it than it is for me, for me to write it. So I come from that side of it. And when you telling your story, especially when you're doing the stand and deliver, you have to think about engaging your audience and bringing them in, and also being creative and descriptive in how you are doing it. In film and television, it's kind of a little easier to do that because you can see it. It's visual. The director wants you to know that someone's getting ready to read a book or something. You can just follow that person over to picking up that book. If you're standing on stage to tell your story, you just have the script. You just have your words to tell that story. And I'm just going to say that this little thing here, just to show you that about the imagination, how you envision it. This is one line from the first piece that I ever wrote, which is called I See. And it's a tale of my eyeglass journey. from the time when I hated wearing glasses when I was younger and was blind as a bat, as they would say, to the point where I got old enough to use my BEOG money, which was the government money they sent you to college with, honey. I bought me some contacts, bought me some contacts to Haiti.
I can't. I did the same thing.
Girl, to Haiti. Wearing glasses, girl. That BOG check came handy.
I've been wearing glasses since I was 4. I'm
girl, yes. Then the next part of it was going to, okay, now I need now I got to do readers, so I'm doing this, and then the stage went to bifocals. So this is just one line in the first phase of the 3 phases of the story that I wrote. It was and this was just to give you my take on imagery. Imagine waking up every morning and putting a piece of apparatus on your face that equates to putting 2 Coca-Cola bottles up to your eyes and peering through the thickness of the glass. Yeah, that was me every morning as a kid when I put on my glasses. So you can picture, just from the description of those words, you can picture how thick them glasses were. You can really picture how thick when you think of Coca-Cola bottles, all you think of that nice thick bottle. Try looking through a Coca-Cola bottle. Yeah, that's what it was like for me. So that's what I meant about being descriptive. If you're doing stage, like I said, you want to engage your audience. So body movement, you don't want to be stiff. You want to feel people to feel your energy. Where in film is, once again, everything is contained. But everything is shown through the lens of the director who is telling that story. And then everybody else is in place to deliver and to execute the story that he wants to tell. So, and the pace, now you got to watch the pace of the story too, because sometimes, you don't want to get bored with it. You got to watch your pacing and your flow. And me, I can get a little long-winded, but I'm very descriptive in stories that I tell. And that's what I found my niche to be. And to tell it from a comedic standpoint of view, sometimes makes it a little easier to tackle those subjects. And I do know the first story that I ever did write would probably be the last story that I really probably expand on, because it was a story that involved so many other people who I had not yet told that I was doing that story. But I did it amongst my writers group, the Blacker the Pen. I did it amongst there and read it there. And yeah, so that's another thing there.
That's absolutely perfect, Arlene, because literally I was going to go into, before you got into sharing that excerpt with us, going to ask you to do a quick presentation for our audience here. But since you did that, I think right now what we're going to do is transition into question and answer, because we do have some questions coming in. So I don't know if you mind if we do that really quickly.
Okay. Talk to a sister.
All right. All right. So Arlene is ready for you all. One of the first questions I see in the chat is from Miss Kimberly Thornton. Hello, Miss Kimberly. Thank you for joining us tonight. She says, so do you add the animations within your stories? Oh, well, you did answer that, but I guess if you can expand on that for the people that are joining in, there are a couple people joining in, and also I have a piggyback question to that.
Okay, I don't into my stories, but yes, you absolutely could add animation into your story, because that is another way of storytelling. And also in this new age that we are in right now, with the internet has given us so many brand new ways for everybody to be a storyteller. TikTok, Twitter, everybody is a storyteller. Everyone is telling their story in their way, the way they want to. So yeah, you can absolutely add animation to tell your story. And as a matter of fact, I would love to even be somebody's animation character. So yeah, but no.
Listen, we could work on that together. I always want to be the voice of a cartoon.
Yes, girl, me too.
Like a real sassy one. But look, to piggyback off of that question, do you think that social media apps and platforms like TikTok are taking away from the original storytelling? Are they helping new and old, creatives that have no choice but to change with the times? What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts initially were, yes, absolutely. I thought that, but then again, everything has its time and space, and that's the space we're moving into now. So as the end of your statement was, either you get with that program or you kind of like be left behind. But I think original storytelling, I don't think will ever get lost. But with the advent of the TikToks and the quick Twitters and the fact that we are a world of microwavable minds, everything quick. If I need it now, I need it now. So those platforms allow for the slight attention span that we have as people nowadays. We don't want to sit and listen. That's why in storytelling, you really have to be descriptive and you really have to be engaging, because the moment you lose somebody, they're gone. So that's why storytelling is important to keep the imagery, keeps it flowing in the sense. But I don't think that the TikToks and Twitters are ruined it now. It's just the way it is now. Before TV, there was radio, and the worst thing you could have did was put on no TV and see all the gyrating and whatever. But that little minor stuff they was doing there, girl, the gyration that goes on, the almost practically acts that go on stage now. So everything just moving forward. So it's get with the times. I personally, I had a TikTok account. I put one thing up there and haven't been back on there to see what else I put up there since then. I do, it gets to be addictive, but for me personally, right, I haven't done anything else.
Listen, I'm with you. I just people watch. I can't throw in another social media platform. All I have time for is Instagram and Facebook and maybe
Twitter. And I barely have time for Instagram. I'm still old. Right. I still be on Facebook.
Right. I'll be watching. I'll be like, how's everybody doing? Nobody answers because they over on IG land.
Yeah, they don't know.
The next question coming in is, do you find yourself in writer's conflict with your characters? Is it more of the period piece, content, or character?
For me personally, like I say, I would speak from my writing standpoint. I don't find conflict in my writing because, like I say, I am the center of most of my writings. But what I do find conflict is that if I am telling the story and my story involves someone else, I am conscious of the conflict that might bring from me telling the story. But as far as, my own personal writing is not character driven. And that's what I really love about my writers group, because when I was a founding member of the Black Writer Pen, and shout out to our visionary founder, Adiaga Faiza. Thank you. Most of the women in that group are playwrights or screenwriters. And I just always was like, well, I don't know how to create. I don't have that. How do you all sit down and create characters in your head? I just didn't have that. I didn't have let me wait in the middle of the night. I'm waking up and let me write down, the character. I just found this character, just came to mind. I told him, I say, I don't get those kind of stories. I say, I don't have that. So they encouraged me to do whatever it is that inspires me. And in my writing, like I say, now comes from a more autobiographical sense. So no, I don't have the conflict though.
All right. The next question comes from Dusty. It seems you've done a lot: movies, plays, theater. Which do you enjoy most?
Which do I enjoy? I enjoy theater the most. I love live. So I enjoy theater the most. Film and TV pay better. Film and TV pay more. But I do enjoy. I like the interaction with the audience, and so I enjoy theater the most. I think I would love to do Broadway stuff. I can't sing. So that's a goal. So I got to wait for the non-singing role to come about for Broadway.
I mean, I'm sure you can hum. Just practice.
Mhm. Yes.
I can't. Look what I started. Another question coming in. What would you say is the average time that it would take to write a good story for film?
That really is a personal writing thing, because I know some writers who sit down and they like, bloop, 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 and they can sit there and they have a whole thing wrote out overnight. You have some that would take forever to get a scene put down on the paper. So unfortunately, there is no average time to say when one writes, or how long it takes one to put it on paper, because that is a personal journey with the writing, though. And there's no time span unless somebody said, hey, I need you to give this to me by this. Other than that, writing is a personal journey. So, you would take however long you need, or hey, if it's in your head, like I say, I'm not one who gets character, so I don't wake up and say, oh, let me just write it down. But I know people who do, and they can finish off a whole episode just from what they just had in their head, and it can be done in overnight.
All right, another question. Who would you, if you had to write a story about yourself for film, who would you have play you?
Ooh, baby. Child, I would probably cast myself. No, so I can get that check. I would cast me. I would say cast me because, when I do auditioning, and people will always say, well, Arlene, why don't you, when I'm auditioning or when I'm practicing my tapes, my self-tape, they just want you to be you. Why don't you be you? And I'm like, well, if they just want me to be me, then just hire me. Don't be sending me these scripts then. Just hire me then, if they just want me to be me. But who would I like? Well, at this age right here, I like Loretta Devine. I like Loretta Devine. Yes, Diva.
I like that because, that would be something different. She's always playing somebody's mother.
Girl, that's what I do. I play somebody's
somebody's
ex-wife. All I am is somebody auntie, but I play a bunch of auntie, but I ain't nobody mama. So yeah.
Oh my goodness, some more questions rolling in. Thank you everybody for submitting your questions. Again, if you have a question, please put them in the chat and I will read them off to our special guest, Arlene A. McGruder. If you are just joining us, welcome, welcome, welcome again to the African American Women in Cinema educational series. On the last Friday of each month, we bring you a spectacular guest speaker. And of course, Arlene took the time out in her day to join us today. And again, we want to give special thanks to our CEO, Tara Renee, also here supporting. And to every one of you here tonight, thank you, because you could be anywhere and you are virtually here with us. So moving on to the next question from Nicole Scott. What's your advice on protecting your writing and what is your creative process?
Protecting your writing, I would say definitely copyright. If you're putting anything down, copyright. There's some little cheap ways of doing it, or you can go the real expensive way, but you can copyright. And what was the second part of that question?
What is your creative process?
Girl, I don't have no process. No, I don't. If
you hop on one foot and drink mint tea?
Yeah, girl. My process is somebody say, I am that one. And I'm
Sage is like, because that's what I do.
Right. I'm not one who sit down and is like, ooh, let me, honey. If it's somebody say, hey, I need this, and boom, 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 then I'll produce it at that point. I am that kind of writer. But within my writers group, it keeps me active with it because we meet every 2 weeks and there's always something, a new, I forgot the little word that our little fearless leaders have us do at the beginning of each of our writers sessions. But my process is, especially when we get together, it's easier for me to do it than alone because I'm a procrastinator. So if you put a little pressure on me, then my process change. But if not, I just mosey along with just story. I have so many like different books that I start stories, and then I have just got another book. I start another story. So my process be all over the place, yeah. My process honestly is just all over the place. I have no set process. Some people do. I just don't.
Mm-hmm. And that's all right too.
Yeah,
Look,
it works for me, girl. It works for me.
you know what's interesting about the part you're talking about protecting your writing? I heard a little secret from a birdie at work. If you write down, like, say, like it's a film idea or some mini story, and mail it to
Mail
yourself,
it to yourself.
is that real?
That's why I say that's the little cheap.
That's the cheap way to do it.
Of kind of like at least starting your process. Other than that,
Right.
if you really get some writing, then yeah, definitely copyright.
Okay.
Mhm.
So that is, I wasn't sure
Yeah.
that was
That
real.
was that's been the
person
little
who
thing
told me
for
that
a good little way. That's the little old little trick from back in the day deals. But yeah,
Oh.
just don't open it. Keep it sealed, stay sealed, and
Right.
it's date stamped and everything. Just keep it closed. Mhm.
Right. Okay. And Sage further
Right.
confirmed this in the chat. He says, but you can't open it unless there's a dispute.
That's right.
All right. I see everybody. Like I can't see everybody, but y'all are probably writing that down. Next question. Do you see a topic in the form of storytelling that is trending now in film? And if so, what is it?
What's trending now in film, I think, is everybody not kind of like trying to get on the little bandwagon of inclusivity, or now you want to see everything is popping up roses, but really for us, I think a lot of family or no, on the real though, a lot of I think the trend now is a lot of family, going back to, I think, family values now. I think some of the shows are going back to a lot of family shows. And then on the other side of that too, is that you see now just a lot of what you call robot, because I'm not into, but the robotic or shows, the superhero things now. Everybody's a superhero. Superhero is a trend now. Being a superhero or being a cartoon of a superhero, that's a new trend now.
Yeah, I see a lot of, ever since I saw Get Out, I see a lot of people exploring more, dimensions of race and racism and how people, either ignore it or, implicit bias and stuff like that. So that's another kind of, trending thing in film now as well. Another question coming into our chat. Have you ever come across a story that was very hard to envision?
Yes. And actually, it's one of my stories that I would honestly admit haven't been vulnerable enough yet to put it down. But yeah, and in the writers group, that was actually one of the first things. It was like, write your hardest story. They went to write your hardest story, and I still have strayed away from writing that hardest story just yet, but I will, because that has to be part of the story. But there is a story that I find hard to visualize, and then I find it hard to put it down on paper. That was a good
is that how, when you are experiencing moments like that, how do you overcome, and what do you tell yourself to like self-motivate yourself to be like, I can keep, writing, I can keep, getting to that point where I will eventually get to that point where I will write about this hard part of my life?
I think what I do is I divert and write the story that does make it easier for me to write. But I also beat myself up a little bit because I know that true storytelling, true writing comes from you being vulnerable and allowing yourself to put those stories down. So my thing is to just continue my process, because I am still new at the process. Is just continue to write those stories that I can put down, because it will eventually get me to that story that is hard for me to write down, because it's always there, and you don't not think about it. It's there. It's just allowing the vulnerability to come through. And it just like in anything, with acting as well, that's why some of the greatest actors are who they are, because they allow themselves to be vulnerable right in that little box and don't care. And with the writing of some of my stories, I haven't gotten to that point just yet, but I am on that journey.
Mm-hmm. Well, we are almost concluding our question and answer segment, but I have one more question for you. 2 more questions for you.
Hey, all right.
Some people say writing is therapeutic. What are your thoughts? And Nicole Scott in the chat says, I admire you for the gumption to find the discipline to write. So,
honey,
Nicole,
it is discipline. But that's why I love the writers group, because they keep you accountable. That's why I say, if it wasn't for them keeping me accountable, I would probably be the biggest procrastinator with doing it. So yeah, I find, my writers group does keep me accountable. And I know I missed a part of that. Was she asking about?
She said, what are your thoughts when it comes to some people say that writing is therapeutic? And of course, she admired your gumption for having the discipline to write.
I absolutely do believe it's therapeutic. That's why I say I will definitely get to the point where I can write those hard stories down, because even in the process of putting the stories that I am doing in my head down on paper, it's like, wow. And even like, say, the writing part in me doing the autobiographical writing, it made me stop and think like, wow, you've been through that? You did that? Because when you're going through things, you just go through them. You don't have time to think about what that effect is. You just trying to get through it. And then once you get through it, it's like it's on to something else, because there is another roadblock or another stumbling stop that's right in front of you. And honey, you just have to keep going. So yeah, I think it is very therapeutic. And I've been always told that, but I've always been one of those ones that if you write it down, it becomes real. If you write it down, then everybody knows. So I think that's been part of don't write nothing down. If you don't write it, nobody knows. But now as the layers come off, as you get older, and the vulnerability allows you to go even deeper, then yeah, it's very therapeutic. Because can't afford no psychiatrist.
Not too much, Arlene. One more question. During this, over a year and a half of quarantine and being in shutdown, what is one thing you learned about yourself that you have taken advantage before, this pandemic, that you appreciate about yourself now?
What I will say is I was fortunate enough that during the pandemic that I was still able to work my plantation gig. Yeah, that's the rent paying job for real. So I was fortunate enough to still do that. But what I did found, which sparked even more creativity in me, and that's why me and my co-producer Christy Perfetti Williams, thank you, we created an online film festival to give Black Indigenous women of color an opportunity to do a 60-second film to tell how the pandemic affected them in whatever way, whether it was a good thing for them, bad thing for them. Hey, I'm glad I lost my job. Hey, I'm glad for whatever they did. And we had 3 winners from that. But for me personally, it made me, this whole part right here got me to call myself a storyteller. So it has affected me in a good way, in a sense, because it's allowed me to really tap into another creative avenue that I've been running from.
Wow, wow, wow. Well, thank you so much. This concludes our question and answer. And before, I get into the absolute end, Arlene, where can people follow you on social media and support all of your, works, your film, comedy, anything? Let us know.
Guys, first, let me just say, I just want to thank Kimberly and I want to thank Tara for this opportunity. Thank you, Roxy, girl. This was great. But on Instagram, IG, as the kids say, you can find me at The Real Diva. On Facebook, Arlene A. McGruder. You'll probably be blocked, but okay, no. Now you'll be blocked. I mean, it's a private some page, so you can reach me there. But you can also
He's like, what's the code? Sesame.
Yeah. You need also, my website is www.arlene, ARLENE, McGruder, McGruder.com. And also follow us on the Black Her, the Pen IG page as well. Perfect.
We have come to our conclusion, folks. I would like to thank all of you for joining us tonight. It's been wonderful, as you can hear and tell. We look forward to seeing you on October 29th at 7 p.m. Don't forget to visit www.AAWIC.org next month for all the details, and we look forward to seeing you all again. Until then, please be safe. Special thanks again to Arlene, Tara, Roger, of course, for UFront Media. And just follow AAWIC_. Find out what's happening next. And of course, if you'd like to follow me, Roxy Digital, ROXIE Digital. So happy to connect with you, Arlene. You are the best, and I love your vibes and your energy.
I love you, Roxy.
Yes, this has been great. And what did I tell you? I told you.
Yes.
Be good. All right. Until next time, please follow Arlene if you'd like to ask her any questions or just follow her dream and her journey as she continues on to greatness.
I don't do Cash App, but I got PayPal. No, just kidding.
Cash App, $, Arlene McGruder.
I don't, I got PayPal. Y'all